Welcome into the Dynasty review for the Los Angeles Rams. Amazing year for the Rams for fantasy, for their season. Couple of the best waiver wire pickups that I've ever seen since playing fantasy football. Brian, Los Angeles Rams, a lot to be optimistic about.
I think so. I mean, I just think that, like you said, it's kind of funny. Like, I feel like a lot of people were kind of discounting the Rams in general. And it's like, yeah, they're still good. You know, there's like no real reason to say like, oh, they're going to be bad now or something like that. But we'll dig into these individual players. But yeah, definitely had a couple of stars emerge kind of thing, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Rams, this was like the perfect situation. If you have Ram players, stocking them in Dynasty, like this was kind of a make or break year, in my opinion, of like if they were to just get injured, suck, go 6-11, not make the playoff. I think potentially McVay's gone, Stafford might retire, but they did really well. They hit on a few draft picks, obviously Puka, one of them, but a couple of defensive guys as well. And that was without a first round pick. And now they look at themselves 10-7. Sean McVay's going to be coming back. Stafford's going to come back. They have $35 million in cap space. That's the 12th most, so good amount of cap space. They have 10 draft picks.
They actually have a first round pick this year.
They actually have a first round pick. Yeah. So they did a soft rebuild and they're kind of back. They were one play away from beating the Lions, and the Lions made it to the NFC Championship game. And I think the Rams probably, I know the Lions should have won against the 49ers, but to me, it was the Rams had the best chance to beat the 49ers just because they know each other. But anyways, lots to be optimistic about. Not a whole lot of free agents to worry about. I mean, Carson Wentz is a free agent. No one really cares too much there. Ronnie Rivers, not a big deal. I mean, Demarcus Robinson, he had a nice stretch there the last 6 weeks or so, but I don't really think he's going to do much after that. Bryce Hopkins, nothing there. So, yeah, not a whole lot of free agents. So we'll start with Stafford. I mean, if you bought low on Stafford, that was really good on you because, what did he finish? The top? Let's see. Stafford was QB 15. He missed 2 games. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I just said 15.
Yep, and missing 2 games. So he averaged almost 17 points a game. So he averaged more than Tua, more than Baker. So yeah, he was more like a top 10 guy per game. He's going to be back this year. Just kind of running back with Stafford, right? Like assuming you're on a contender, he's going to be a solid QB2, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. He is one of those guys along with, I was kind of looking at him similar to how I was looking at Rodgers last year. And I know there was someone else kind of in that range, but definitely guys that I was looking to sell on a rebuilding team. It's like, oh, I should be able to get a second round pick for him. Mm-hmm. And it was actually harder. I did end up making it happen, but it was just kind of like, it was harder than I thought it was going to be to just get a second for Stafford. So yeah, and I think that's kind of like right where he's slotted in. Obviously it's related to like the age and the uncertainty going into the season, but it's like, yeah, if you get a year out of him for a second round pick, if you need a QB2, I think you could do much worse. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. He played well. His fantasy numbers didn't match as well as he played, I don't think. So I could easily see him having an even better season next year per game. And he has the weapons. He has the offensive system. So he's one of those, even on a rebuilding team, I'm just kind of holding him right now. And I think his value only kind of increases during the season. So unless he gets hurt, of course. Yeah, that's about it for Stafford. That's about it for the quarterbacks. I mean, there's a guy named Dresser Wynn on the team. Never knew who he was. Stenson Bennett. I don't know what's going on with him. I think he's like having like alcoholic problems. And he was kind of like not with the team and all that. So
that's what Dad said. because I mentioned him at some point, like, I wonder if he's going to be a thing, like obviously, like kind of what you said, where it's like, oh, if they would have done a lot worse than they did this year, it's like there would have been more opportunity there, possibly. Not that he would necessarily slot right in there, but I mean, he is kind of a smaller guy, and yeah, when I mentioned him to Dad, he was like, "Oh, he's an alcoholic," and I was like, "Oh, well,
yeah,
shit." Like,
yeah, like he got a DUI or drunken in public or something like that during the off season, and then I think it kind of like, he was always kind of he was a little bit of a running joke just because his age. He's like really old. He was playing in what's that?
26.
Yeah, and he was a rookie last year, so that's very old. But anyways, that was COVID stuff and all that. I don't think he's super talented anyway, so it'd be interesting to see what the Rams do at the pick 19, because there potentially is like a Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy falling there, and where do you balance like building for the future / we want to win this year and we can, so it'd be interesting to see, but we don't need to speculate too much on that yet.
I'm going to say, just based on history, that they're going to trade their first round pick, even if it's in the draft, and not draft somebody, just get another nod. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I also think because they hit on the draft so well, they got like 3, including Puka, like 3 starters, and that turned their season around. So I think they're like, oh, maybe draft picks are good.
Maybe
Kyren
are good.
Kyren was awesome. Like the dude was amazing. Wow. Like what was he? RB6, and he missed 5 games. So that's amazing. He averaged only McCaffrey averaged more points than him per game. Like the dude, like you just look at his game log. He had 2 games under double-digit points. So he was awesome. Really, really awesome. It kind of affected Stafford a little bit in terms of the touchdowns, but he's one of the few, and I'm very notorious. Like I'm just selling running backs in the offseason. He's one of the few that I'm gonna keep him for the most. Like unless someone's willing to give me like a top 6 or 7 rookie pick this coming year, I think I'm just gonna hold Kyren Williams. I don't even know if I'd take like the 109, 110 for him, because I think he's just gonna. A lot of people will point to like late round rookie, what about James Robinson, Dameon Pierce? And the big difference is, and this has been mentioned on a couple podcasts, the coaching staff's the same and they like him. So those other situations, the coaching staff changed, and that's always a big deal. It's not happening here. So, are you kind of in the same boat with Kyren? Like he's one of the few guys you're expecting to smash next year?
Yeah, we know McVay's history with running backs in general. Like there's usually just one guy that gets all the work, kind of a thing. We saw it with Gurley, we saw it with Cam Akers in spurts, outside of injuries. Like I think Kyren's gonna be that dude for this year coming up. Like there's no reason not to. Like they don't have a lot invested in him like money wise or anything, because he was like a 5th round rookie pick 2 years ago. And
super slow.
Which is funny because like it's not necessarily, and he's not a big dude or anything like that, like so, but it's just like it's the situation, and I'm not trying to discount his talent either, because obviously you need talent in order to get the opportunity, and to do what he did is just amazing. I'm a little bummed out that someone put him up on the trade block in our Dynasty League like a couple of weeks in, and I tried to buy him, and then I can't remember, that manager lost another running back to an injury, and he was kind of like, I think I need him. And it's just like, man, like if I could have got him, I think I offered a 2nd round pick.
It would have been nice.
Yeah, I know. It would have been awesome, but whatever. Such is life.
Yep. And it's always hard. Trading is so hard, man. Like it's scary trading away guys. It's scary trading for guys. So, but yeah, he's awesome. In 2024, I expect him to run it back kind of. there's no one else a whole lot to talk about here. I mean, Zach Evans was a rookie last year. He kind of had a chance when Kyren got hurt, and then they brought in like Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson.
Yeah.
But we also saw Kyren do nothing in his rookie year. So, like, obviously the running back for the Rams is very valuable, So he probably is a hold right now if he's going to be the running back too. I think you're holding him. But as soon as if they bring in someone else, they draft someone, he's no longer the RB2, then he's definitely a drop in my opinion.
Yeah, for some reason I thought Kyren got hurt in his rookie year, like right away. But it says he started 10 games, so I'm just kind of, I guess I was wrong about that. I might have even said that on another podcast. Like, it's like, oh, he's going to be the dude. I don't know who I'm thinking of, but.
Okay, he had broken foot in 2022 on June 7th when underwent surgery, didn't play in the preseason, and then he had a high ankle sprain in his first game in September 8th and got him and placed on injured reserve. So he did miss basically all of preseason and the first 5 weeks or whatever of the season. So that definitely hurt him.
Yeah.
At that point. So yeah, I mean, Zach Evans, he's just a little background on him. Like, he was a 5-star recruit out of high school, like, one of the most sought after running backs in college. And he just never put it together even in college. Like, he was never the guy. He was, just never took over the backfield. So it's just one of those, like, people liked him because he had so much hype coming out of high school. But he just, he spent 3 years in college and he was just never the guy for his team. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's really going to work out for him.
Yeah. And if Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman are taking your job or your opportunity from you, that's kind of all you really need to know right there.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure. The wide receivers, obviously a lot to talk about here. A decent amount. I mean, Cooper Kupp, he had a down year, but I was looking at it right as we were recording, and his numbers in a 17-game pace, like, it wasn't terrible. It was like 85 catches, over 1,000 yards, and like 8 touchdowns, which is fine. Like, he's not going to be most likely Cooper Kupp from 2021, but even anywhere like close to that. But could you see him just like having a 85 catch, 1,100 yard, 8 to 10 touchdown season? Like, would that surprise you next year if he did that?
No, not at all. But yeah, we're never going to get that 2021 season again. I mean, never say never, but yeah, he's not getting almost 200 targets like he did that year. Even though that kind of was his pace last year, but the next guy we're going to talk about, who everyone knows, is Puka. Like, it's definitely his like, he's going to be the main dude on this team. Like, how could he not be, given like what he just did? So yeah, Kupp is he'll still be a solid, I'd say probably wide receiver 2-ish, like maybe low end, but what he's capable of in general. Right. So I think he's a great piece to buy low if you're a contending team. Like, he's gonna outperform his wide receiver 32 price right now. And that's all related to age, more or less, because he is on a downward swing. It is kind of hard to bet on, a 30-year-old player to like bounce back after a somewhat disappointing season, but a lot of that was injury related. So I don't know if we can hold it against him necessarily, but I mean, there is something to that, when a 30-year-old guy is coming back from a major injury and then he gets hurt, obviously in different ways in the season. Like, it's like, do you think he's ever going to be good again, kind of a thing? And I think the answer is kind of yes. Like, he won't be great, but he'll be good.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he did play the whole year, even with the same pace, if we'd have the same feeling, because he averaged 11.2 half PPR points. He was within a half a point of like Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley, like those guys, so he wasn't that far off from those guys. I don't know. I could see him doing good things, like, even if he's not going to be the alpha, it just kind of all runs through Kupp and Puka. So,
and all those guys are going to get drafted in front of him, except maybe not Ridley, like in redraft this coming year. So yeah, I think he'll be a great value pick, like where he goes. Like you could probably get him 2, maybe even 3 rounds after Puka gets taken off the board, which is not a bad consolation prize.
Yeah. Straight up, Cooper Kupp or Christian Kirk?
I think I like Kirk, but that's probably pretty close.
Yeah. I'd take Cooper Kupp just for the possibility of getting like this amazing season again, like a big season, not 2021, but yeah, they're back to back. That's why I asked. And then Puka, we've never seen anything like it, literally. So, people are discounting it a little bit, like, oh, he did it in 17 games. It's like, who cares? He was like 20 yards away from breaking it in 16 games and stuff. And it's just like, if Stafford didn't miss that one game, he probably would have had it. So Puka's, pretty awesome what he was doing. Like right out the gate, 35 targets and 25 catches in 2 weeks is insane. And he rose up the draft board. I almost was tossing around selling him after week 1 for like a second round pick. I probably would have, to be honest, just like the process again, like, does the process always work? No, but that would have been a huge mistake. Even for just a first round pick, it would have been a huge mistake because I think he's worth multiple. Wide receiver 5 is where he's at in keep trade cut. So, look at it. He even set records in the playoffs, like the most by a rookie in the playoffs, I think, catches or yards or something. So the dude's if the big thing is, can he stay healthy? He does seem to take a lot of hits. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about Puka, but is he deservedly a top 5 receiver? Or is that no overreaction in your opinion?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to argue either way. Like, I think there's a couple of guys below him that I'd rather have. Like, I think I'd rather have Garrett Wilson and or AJ Brown, but it's hard to say like, oh, this guy's definitely worse than those guys because he did do a lot, but if you could trade Puka for one of those guys straight up, don't you think you would do it? Or no? I know you're a big Garrett Wilson lover. That's why I brought him up specifically.
And AJ Brown.
Yeah, that's true, right? Yeah.
But my only issue is with Garrett Wilson, a lot of his value, like we've seen without a good quarterback. And so we need Rodgers to be good. And he's coming off a torn Achilles at age 40, which is something we'd never seen. And we didn't even talk about this with Kirk Cousins, which is kind of a mistake on our point. The fact that he was tore his Achilles as well. When we talked about the Vikings. So that's my only concern. And then, we're 3 years in now of like, and they still got to find a quarterback, that's my only concern with Garrett Wilson. And it just feels like a lateral move. So in general, I don't really make those lateral trades. Like they're in the same tier and stuff. Like if you add anything to those guys, yeah, for sure. I'm taking it straight up. I don't know, man. It's hard to argue against what we saw with like just dominance, like in the playoff game, like 10 or 9 for 181. And just like, I know he's with Sean McVay and like, what if they draft a quarterback with a 19 overall pick and he sits behind Stafford for a year or two and then they just transition to, like the Packers did with Jordan Love. So I don't know if it's an automatic, like I would.
Yeah, I guess it was more of a dynasty startup question as opposed to a trade question. And Garrett Wilson, it's 2 years, Mike. Come on, not 3.
No, I'm just saying, like, we're going on. I'm saying if it plays out potentially how I'm thinking of, like, Rodgers not being Rodgers, then we're 3 years in, of Garrett Wilson being like, oh, the potential, DJ Moore situation, right?
Yeah, sure. But yeah, like, I think, like it's funny that we're talking about him so much when it's like it's so obvious that he's like good and stuff. But I don't know, man. Like I think it could be. I know it's not fair because he's a rookie, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, his value is never going to be higher. Well, I can't necessarily say that because that's not, you can't speak in absolutes about a guy who just did what he did. But it's like, that doesn't mean necessarily you sell him because you might just enjoy like, oh, you probably drafted him in the 4th round or got him off of waivers, which which is kind of funny, just because like what he did. And so like, I guess you really have to make the decision. Do you cash in? Like you can probably, like, I don't see why you couldn't get like a really high end quarterback for him in Superflex, or a really high. When I say high end, I don't think like you're not getting homes or anything like that, but yeah, I think you should definitely consider trading Puka for something like that. If you are an actual rebuilding team, like you just kind of cash out your chips and get something that's a little bit more that we've seen it from longer. But again, that's not fair because he's a rookie and he literally just was the best rookie wide receiver ever, like in terms of receptions and yards. So yeah, definitely an interesting guy to think about for sure.
I mean, in one of my dynasty leagues where my team's god awful, I have Puka, and someone basically offered me the 103 for Puka, and I was very hesitant. Like, I'm just thinking in my head who that is. That's QB2 most likely. So, I don't know. Like, I'm very hesitant, like, to even move him for that. So that's kind of where his value is. I kind of want multiple first round picks.
Would you trade him for Marvin Harrison straight up? Like if you could get the pick that is going to be Marvin Harrison, basically the 102, or even like let's say two quarterbacks go and that offer's still on the table and you can get Marvin Harrison, are you just trading Puka for that?
I guess because if Marvin Harrison has a good rookie year, he's going to have so much more value. Right?
Yeah.
Because Puka, people are still wanting, he's a 5th round pick, blah, blah, blah. But what do we expect from Marvin Harrison? Like,
still not fair. Like,
yeah, but like, what do we expect from Marvin? Like, we if he has a Puka season, like,
yeah,
that's like literally the best of all time. So it's kind of crazy to like, how much do we expect from him? I guess so.
It's totally the bird in the hand situation, right? It's like I don't know if I would do that because we've already seen it from Puka, which is basically that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like he is definitely, like he's extremely rare. Like it'll basically never happen again to see what we saw from Puka. Like we don't expect that to happen. And yeah, like I think it's an interesting conversation to have, but you better feel really strongly one way or the other if you're making that trade, depending on what side you're on. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure. I probably would do it for Marvin Harrison Jr. just again because he's already going to come in and be like probably ahead of Garrett Wilson. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 6 as soon as he gets drafted. As soon as we're able to rank him.
Sure.
So, yeah, super tough. But I honestly want multiple first round picks for him, or a high first and a high second or something. If I'm even thinking about trading away for picks. But yeah, if you can get like a quarterback in a super flex, they're historically more valuable, right? So that's definitely if you can get one of the top 7, 8 guys, maybe even top 10 guys, you probably just do that.
Would you trade him for Richardson?
Yeah, I think
would you trade him for Jordan Love?
Yeah, I probably would. Just because if we go back to we haven't seen it the last 2 years, but in terms of actually, I don't know if I would. Now, even Richardson, I'm kind of thinking in my head.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're trading him for Love based on our Jacksonville video, that means you would trade him for Lawrence.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I probably wouldn't go lower than just looking at keep trade cut. Herbert is probably what my cut off, to be honest, straight up.
Yeah, and their value is pretty far apart too. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. If you have Puka and you are desperately need of a high end quarterback, a top 12 guy, float that out there, because it could be great.
Yeah, and historically, quarterbacks are way more valuable than receivers. Even the wide receiver 3 or 4 overall, there's 6, 7 quarterbacks better than them. In terms of value. So, yeah, and we were able to spend so much time on those 2 guys because there's not really a whole lot to talk about after that. Demarcus Robinson, he had a good stretch. Don't really, he's been in the league for a while now. If he's back at the Rams, that's the best case scenario for him. But anywhere else. I'm not super excited. No one else really. Tutu Atwell had a good stretch there. Again, he'll be on the Rams. He's fine. As if one of the guys get hurt, but you need an injury. And yeah, no one else to really talk about. And even at tight end, it's I won a Dynasty tight end premium league, and I started Tyler Higbee every week except for his bye week. So, that's where my philosophy with tight ends are all the time. If they're not one of the top 5-ish guys, I'll just take the value somewhere and roll with it. So,
yeah, I will say that we have seen, this isn't a Higbee thing, but I was going to say we have seen tight ends be pretty good, on the Rams in general. Like Sean McVay, he doesn't use them a ton, but I can definitely see the tight end. Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to imagine a tight end being in front of any of the guys we already talked about in terms of targets. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting if there is a dude there. Like you said, definitely could work in as a low end starter for sure. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at tight end, if they do anything in the draft.
Yeah, and I actually should look up. Okay, they don't really have an out with Higbee, so he probably is going to be there. But Davis Allen was a rookie last year, and he's probably the guy that's most likely to, because he had a couple games, 4 for 50 and a touchdown is really his big game. But again, like what you're saying is essentially if there's a guy to take over for Higbee, it's probably going to be Davis Allen unless they find some value. But yeah, I agree. There's some value there for a Rams tight end.
Yeah.
Especially, Higbee gets a bump a little bit in tight end, PPR, tight end premium stuff because he does catch a decent amount. Like we saw 70 catches in 2022, 47 in 15 games in 2023 is not terrible. So,
yeah, not great, but not terrible.
Yeah, we've seen 60 plus catch potential, but yeah, Davis Allen would be that guy. No one else to talk about there. So we are done with the Rams. We are done. Good, fun year with them, and kind of interested to see what they do next year. So, any last words, the Rams?
Nope. Bye, Rams.
Buy them players or goodbye?
Oh, I meant goodbye. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you probably can.
Guys, except for Stafford, like we said, and no one else is worth it.
Maybe Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kupp, maybe too, but it's you can't buy Kyren most likely, or Puka for any kind of value, kind of a thing. They're going to be too expensive, and I'm not saying they're not worth it. So buy high. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we'll finish up there. We'll be back with the Steelers, who you mentioned made it all the way to the playoffs. So, we got to talk about the Steelers. So we will catch you guys then.